Slurpty-derp, my G's. Hope you're doing super sick. I'm still here in Bogota, Colombia. Had my first little radio show last week, which was a lot of fun. And aside from that, I've been doing a lot of exploring, some day trips, a bit of hiking up Monserrate, which is the little mountain. It's 3,200 meters high. It's quite a big mountain. Anyway, yeah, loving life. Really happy. And yeah, I had a great Zoom hangout with the Patreon squad recently, and yeah, I want to just give a massive big ups to all of you guys who joined there. So personally, big ups to you, Kerry, big ups to you, Digipax, big ups to you, Ian, big ups to you, Phobos, big ups to you, Dasmatron, big ups to you, Stephen, big ups to you, Mark, big ups to you, Riot as well. I think I remembered all the names. Anyway, we had a wicked Zoom hangout. It was a lot of fun. I was laughing pretty much most of the time when they were all taking the piss out of me. Anyway, today what I've made is a really cool Vital ARP/bass, and we're going to jump straight into it. I'm going to show you a couple of extra little synthesis tips that could be applied in a lot of synths, but we're going to stick with Vital this time because I know a lot of you guys have transitioned over to Phase Plant. I'm getting you over there slowly, but for those of you who have not made the jump yet, little Vital bass for you guys today, so let's get into it. Alright then, my G's, so let's take a little dive into this ARP that I've got for you guys here. And what I really like about it is it's got that classic ARP kind of dynamic to it, but it's also got a really bassy element underneath that's quite sustained. Then it's got a lot of detail in the high end, which is one of the main things we're going to talk about today. And yeah, it's also got a cool rhythm, which is not so simple. It's a little bit more groovy, and that's using our LFO sandwich. Those of you guys who watched me for the first time, you don't know what an LFO sandwich is, just don't worry about it. Anyway, let's open the Vital patch here. And actually, quickly, I'll show you the MIDI. So have a look at the MIDI, and you can see what I've done as a sort of compositional thing. I've gone up from E, up to G, up to G sharp, then down to D. And I was actually with a student recently, and we were looking over like a kind of MIDI pattern like this. And one of the things that I helped to simplify it was to like choose your main like sort of progression notes first, and then worry about all the grace notes and things afterwards. So I've got a couple of sort of grace notes between, you know, the changes of the main sort of progression. And the ARP is like, it has a tone and a pitch to it, but it's fairly like flat overall. Like it's quite like sort of dirty and bassy, so you don't hear like the exact pitch changes like as extremely as if it was like a maybe like a piccolo or a flute or something. But anyway, we like it dirty over here, so let's stay away from too much tonality. So today, what I've got is I've called it the Beta Boy Arp. I'm not sure why. That was the first thing that came to my head. Maybe because I'm a beta boy. Maybe because you're a beta boy, you beta boy. Where are the alpha ARPs these days? Anyway, that's all rubbish, isn't it? Just be yourself. Anyway, basic shapes is the first thing we start off with. And there's actually two basic shapes, sine waves and a saw wave, and then some noise as well. And that's going to create our whole shopping trolley of ingredients. So let's start one at a time. I'm going to switch off everything, including the effects. And today, in our effects section, in the coupon discount code section, we're using all of them. We're really getting a good discount on the sound today. Anyway, enough rubbish. So this is the first thing is just our low bassy sub bass. Then we got one 2 octaves up, which I said before is just a sine wave again, and this has got some unison on as well, but we're also going to time skew it. Sounds nasty right now, but it will be better once we filter it all. And yeah, it's FMing from oscillator 1 as well. Very dirty, isn't it, my G's? Then we got a saw wave, which is going to add in more harmonics across the whole mid-range, across your mid-section, mid-jewelry. And this is at -12, and also has a bit of unison, slightly different percentage, and a little bit on the detuning on both of these guys here on the pitch as well, just to give the tone a bit of difference to what it was before I did it. Okay. FMing from oscillator 1. It's got very dirty, rich body of sound. So next up, let's go into the filters. So the main filter movement is going to be caused by a low pass filter opening and closing very, very quickly. And we're going to be modulating the main two oscillators, which are oscillator 2 and 3, to take all of the sort of high end out. But our low bassy sine wave doesn't really have that much high end in, so I'm leaving that out of the filter section. I'm also leaving out the sampled noise, which I didn't add earlier, but here it is. And it's just some artificial noise that I created. And it's really adding just a tiny bit in the high end. It's not doing so much as other noises often do. But then what we're going to do is we're going to add in a second filter, and this one is going to be shaping the sound and the mid-range more and giving the sound its character. And for this, I'm using the filter 2 phaser negative, and it's coming in from filter 1. So everything that's been filtered in filter 1 is going to go through into here next. And hello, the sample mode comes in as well. And this is not like a thing you have to do every time, of course. It's just different combinations of filters, with different sounds is always going to be a different result. So this is just what I ended up with here. So the filter's just going to the left a little bit, so we're playing with that mid-range area. You can see it's at the cutoff is at 213 hertz, so right in that low mid-range. And so we're moving that, we're giving life to the mid-range, which is the most important area for the expressiveness of the sound that we're creating. And here you've got the low pass set to about 105. So we've always got that low bass in there the whole time. Like I said before, it's kind of a sustained bassy arp. If I was to tighten it up, I could take that down and get a bit tighter, but I want to keep that warmth in there the whole time. That's why it's at about 105. And now you might think, it's a little bit uninteresting still, because what we've done is we've filtered out a lot of those harmonics. So the next job, with all of the effects that we've got, we're going to try and reintroduce some character to the high end to make it more interesting again across the whole frequency spectrum, because it's got all the main parts in the bottom nailed. We've got that movement in the low end, we've got that warmth from the bass, and we've got a nice movement in the low mid-range. But now the job is to create an interesting high end to the bass that's not harsh, because it would have been too harsh with all the horrible frequencies from before. So we're naturally adding a nice high end next in the effects section. Let's go. So just before I move on to the effects then, obviously, I didn't really explain the movement. So the LFO1 is at 1/8 triplets, and rather than a normal saw down that's curved, I've added an extra point. So it just gives me a little bit more control of the tone. And then what I've done, because this is how it would sort of sound normally, which it could be cool maybe. Pretty cool, but the other way with my LFO sandwich, I've made it faster, but it speeds up and down. It goes, it's got like it's not just a static rhythm, it's going up and down. And so obviously, I've mentioned it before, A simple way to do is to stick to saw downs or saw ups or triangles when you're doing this technique, because they're like a bit simpler and easier to follow. But here I've got a triangle which I've just curved slightly to change the timing, and that LFO2 goes on to modulate the slider down here of LFO1 at 100%. So the phase, you can see it changes. Okay, so it's going to change the whole groove of LFO1, by this measure. Anyway, let's move on to the actual effects then. So like I said, we're going to use all of the effects. I'm starting off with the distortion on the sine fold mode, and I've got a pre-filter here as well. So we're doing like an extra like low pass filter, but this is just to add like another little detail in the character that wasn't there before. So this is all mixing in as well on the LFO. So a lot of these effects, I'm mixing them in, so they're going to be in line with the ARP. So you mostly hear the effect at the impact point of the ARP. So every time you have like the transient of the ARP, that's when you're going to hear like the effect. So, that low bassy part is going to be quite clean. And then the transient part of the ARP is always going to be the one that has the effect on 90% of the time. So yeah, just a bit of sine fold, driving it up a bit and bringing that low pass cutoff up on the LFO. Okay, pretty simple. And then we've got a compressor, which is, like I mentioned before, it's not really compressing. It's like a boost. It's like an OTT kind of thing. And we're just going to, just to make sure it's acting in that way, turn up the attack all the way and the release down all the way. And then it gets really, really hyper loud, take down the mix, and then we just balance that up and down a bit on the LFO to create like an extra boost in line with the ARP. So the top part of the ARP's like louder again, same as what I did before with the distortion. So you really hear that. That's like contributing like a lot to get that extra high-end sheen that we were looking for. Shout out to Charlie Sheen. I know a lot of people don't like him or don't say bad things about him, but I think he's very funny, and I like 2.5 Men. And I think when Ashton Kutcher came along, it ruined it, and I stopped watching it. But yeah, that's just me. And yeah, same thing with the chorus. Like, it's just opening up the width of the sound a bit as the ARP is at its transient point. Nothing new there, just tweaking the delay and the depth to shape the overall sound a bit. EQ, boosting the nice part of the mid-range that I felt was lacking, and a bit of extra brightness for everything. Okay, then a delay. This is on mono mode, and it's on 1/4 dotted, and it's like, if I turn it up, it adds these extra like transient hits. But if you have it just a tiny bit so you don't notice it, what it's actually going to do is just like add like an extra layer of complexity to the ARP. So if I bring it back down again, there's always these kind of like ghost notes like in the ARP that are very, very subtle. But I like to do that quite a lot. I have these little ghost notes really, really low down in the mix, because the timing of them is different to the original, and that's going to fill out some of the space like in the mix down that you might like want to fill out. Anyway, yeah, just making the sound a bit fuller by doing that. And then, yeah, the last 3 things here are things that I don't often use, but I have this time. I've used the comb filter and the flanger and the phaser, all to try and extract like some more sort of tonality in the high end. So here's the comb ARP, the comb filter. And it's really nice like that actually. I could put that on a macro or something. But I'm just using it a little bit. And it's mixing up again, so it's going to be at that impact point is when you'll hear the little resonance pitch sort of effect from the comb filter. So we'll bring it back down the mix again. So you really just squeeze out a bit of like resonance and tonality in the high end a bit. And then we've got a flanger, which is basically doing the same thing. So if I turn this up, what I've done is I've set the speed to be, sort of 1/8, so it's sort of a little bit like the ARP. It's not exactly following it, but it's kind of following it. And just offset it very slightly so the stereo is not too crazy. And then we just control, where that frequencies are being modulated and how much by with the depth. And it's just a small little movement. And again, that goes up on the LFO for the main ARP, and then we bring the mix back down. Really enjoy that. And then, last up, phaser, pretty much doing a similar thing, but this is the only guy where I think I've reversed the mix. This is a weird thing that it doesn't necessarily need, but if I turn it up, I'm kind of messing with the low end of the mid-range, making it a bit more phasey and weird. And because it was quite, weakening the ARP a little bit, I've just used it a tiny bit. And you might think, why are you bothering to use it if it's weakening the sound? Just like getting a bit more realism into the ARP by messing with the main fundamental sort of low mid-range area just a little bit, like giving that a little bit of almost randomness and variation. That's what I'm doing here with the phaser. So it's sort of just on 5%, and it's mixing back the other way. So it's not going up like loudly like all the other effects are. It's actually going the other way. So it's in effect when we're just hearing like the pure bassy part of the ARP. So we're just messing with the low end of the bass a little bit more than anything. And it's a bit of a really, really subtle effect, but I just felt like it just provided like a slight artificial realism into the low end that just made it a little bit more natural, but just didn't weaken it too much because I only used it in a small amount. Would be kind of like similar to doing like a tape, like running something through like a tape saturation or tape delay, where it sort of messes a little bit with the pitch and like warbles the sound a bit, so it's a little bit more real. Because sometimes the synths can be like too like strong and too synthetic. So sometimes in some ways you can like try and make it sound more realistic, with artificial like problems in the sound, if that makes any sense. Then a bit of reverb. Just a little bit in the high end, taking all the low end out there, and I've pretty much left the rest the same. And that's basically the Beta Boy Arp. So kind of sounds pretty dope with the drums. I really like this one actually. It's been quite a fun one to make. And thanks a lot for watching. Big ups for all your support. I hope you guys have a wicked holiday season. And make sure you eat lots of nice Christmassy food. I'm going to have a little Colombian Christmas here somehow and some way. And I'm also still available around this season for some one-on-ones if anyone is interested in that. And happy to help you guys advance to the next level, jump over the next hurdle, whatever that hurdle may be that you're stuck on. Pretty sure I'll have some good idea to help you guys out. Peace out, much love. Don't do anything I wouldn't. Ciao for now. Ciao bella. Arrivederci. Slap-de-tap.